Nobody forgot you. They just assumed you were fine. You weren't the oldest, so you didn't get the responsibility, the rules built around you, or the first of everything excitement. You weren't the youngest, so you didn't get the babying, the leniency, or the look how cute energy. You were in the middle. And the middle, in most families, is the place where everyone assumes someone else is paying attention. If you are a middle child, or if you grew up with one, you already know exactly what that sentence just did to your chest. Here is what nobody tells you, that quiet experience of being overlooked, of learning to read the room before you learn to read a book, of becoming the peacemaker before anyone asked you to, didn't just shape your childhood, it shaped your entire personality. The way you handle conflict, the way you build friendships, the way you move through the world with this particular mix of independence and hunger to be truly, finally seen. That is not a coincidence, that is psychology. Let's break down what actually happened to you. The first thing is what researchers call the niche differentiation hypothesis. And it explains something you probably figured out on your own before you had words for it. When the oldest child claims the responsible, high-achieving role in the family, and the youngest claims the charming, gets-away-with-everything role, the middle child is left with a quiet but powerful realization: those roles are taken. So you find your own. Psychologist Frank Sulloway, who spent decades studying birth order and personality, found that middle children are statistically more likely to develop unique identities, pursue unconventional paths, and define themselves outside the family structure than their siblings. You didn't become who you are despite being overlooked. You became who you are because of it. The absence of a predefined role forced you to build one from scratch. And that is actually one of the rarest things a person can do. The second thing is social intelligence, and middle children develop it at a level that is genuinely extraordinary. Think about what your childhood actually required of you. You had to negotiate with an older sibling who had more power. You had to manage a younger sibling who got more attention. You had to read your parents' moods carefully because you knew on some level that the squeaky wheel got the grease. And you had learned not to be squeaky. What that built, quietly and without anyone noticing, was one of the most sophisticated social skill sets a person can develop. Research consistently shows that middle children score higher on empathy, are better at compromise, and are more skilled at seeing multiple perspectives in a conflict than firstborns or lastborns. You didn't just survive the middle, you became fluent in other people. The third thing is the friendship factor, and this one surprises people. Because middle children receive less automatic attention at home, they tend to invest more deeply in friendships outside the family. Psychologist Salmon, who co-wrote the book The Secret Power of Middle Children, found that middle children report their closest friendships as more important to their sense of identity than their family relationships, more so than any other birth order. Your friends are not just people you hang out with. For many middle children, friends are the family they built themselves, the people who actually chose them, the relationships where they finally got to be the main character of the story. If you are a middle child and you would do anything for your close friends, this is exactly why. The fourth thing is something that runs quietly underneath all of it: the invisible wound. Being overlooked in childhood does not just create resilience and social intelligence. It also creates a persistent, low-level hunger, A need to be acknowledged that follows middle children into adulthood in ways that are not always obvious even to themselves. It shows up as working harder than necessary to prove a point. It shows up as struggling to ask for help, because asking for help never really worked when you were young. It shows up as a deep sensitivity to being excluded. From the group chat, from the plan, from the decision. That feels disproportionate to the situation, but makes complete sense when you trace it back to where it started. This is not weakness. This is an old wound that never got treated because nobody noticed it was there. Now here is the honest part. The same traits that make middle children extraordinary, the independence, the social fluency, the ability to adapt, can also quietly isolate them. When you are used to not being the priority, you get very good at pretending you do not need to be. You become the low-maintenance friend, the easygoing partner, the colleague who never complains. And that works until it does not. Until you realize that nobody actually knows what you want. Because you stopped saying it so long ago. That you are not entirely sure anymore either. The middle child's greatest challenge is not being overlooked by others. It is learning to stop overlooking themselves. But here is the reframe. The middle position is not the forgotten position. Historically, middle children are wildly overrepresented among the most influential people in the world. Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., Princess Diana, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Nelson Mandela, all middle children. Psychologist Frank Sulloway's research found that middle children are significantly more likely to challenge the status quo, champion social causes, and leave a mark outside the systems they were born into. The same experience that made your childhood feel invisible gave you the tools to be impossible to ignore as an adult. You just have to stop waiting for permission to take up space. You spent years watching everyone else get their moment. The oldest got the celebration. The youngest got the laughter. You got quiet. But quiet is where you learned how to read a room, how to hold a friendship together, how to find yourself without anyone handing you a map. That is not a consolation prize. That is the whole thing. If this finally said out loud what you have felt your whole life, you are not alone. And if you are a firstborn or a youngest watching this, send this to your middle child sibling. They have been waiting a long time to feel seen. Hit subscribe. There is a lot more of your story waiting to be explained.